What is up, everybody? It is Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning The Dr. Vibe Show. As always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Also know I'm a certified empowerment coach and president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. Do know that the Dr. Vibe Show is the home of Epic Conversations, and it is I'm the host of Epic Conversations. I was going to say the place, but place and home sound pretty much the same. So we both. And we're looking forward to another Epic Conversation with a friend. He's been on a few times now, so he's passed the test. We've got Alexander Williams back in the house. He is from Lancaster, California. Instead of me introducing him, let him introduce himself. So Alexander, let it roll.
Oh, well, first off, thank you for the upgrade in friend. I can't believe that I made that. I'm really excited.
Come on now.
Let's see. About me, I'm a writer, an activist, a lover, a rapper, and most of all, a human. I feel that more so than anything, we need to understand the power of relationships and of love in this day and age. Not too many people can really understand the weight of their the physical weight of their decisions, and I just strive to be someone that can be a physical embodiment of those decisions. I am a writer, a learner, sat for experience, probably the only guy you know with Dr. Seuss Chucks. And
okay, hold on. What's Chucks?
Chuck Taylor's, the shoes.
Okay, all right. I do, but other people may not know. So I just wanted to make sure that they're tuned in.
Oh right. Man, if you're not tuned in, you need to set up your antenna a little bit better.
Enough said, brother. Enough said. How long have you had those shoes, by the way?
Since junior year of college, so wow. 2013.
Wow. Okay. All right. Anything else the audience should know except about your feet?
Well, I am a blogger for the Huffington Post. You can go ahead and check me out. Just Google Alexander Williams, Huffington Post. I should be the first result. I did it before the show, so if I'm not, please let me know. You can check out my SoundCloud, Pirate Dan the Malformed. Look me up on Twitter at Dan the Malformed. I love to get in contact with people. I mean, I feel like that's the reason why we do this, right? Is to follow your guide, Dr. Vibe, is to have epic conversations that last to something much meaningful.
Just out of curiosity, before we get into the conversation tonight, which do you enjoy more, music or writing?
Well, they're kind of one and the same, right? Because you need to write in order to create music. So it all starts from that process. For me, writing is something that was just kind of a part of me when I was younger. And so from that, it's been able to really be the foundation for everything else that I build upon. So music, my intrigue in like academic areas and podcasting, everything else in the arts, theater, it all stems from my love of writing, because that's how you engage with this kind of creative ether that's outside of yourself. That's how you engage with what it means to be human. Writing, literature, the arts, it all transcends race, culture, sexuality, because it just gets to something that is much more visceral than anything of that.
Excellent. All right. Well, we've got another epic conversation coming up with you tonight. And a little while back, Alexander and I offline had conversation on, what sort of topics he wanted to bring to the platform. And tonight, again, another casual topic, representation of black characters in film. So why did you want to have a conversation on this topic?
Well, to be honest, I was a little bit influenced by Get Out, Jordan Peele's, I guess you could say it's more of a thriller than a horror movie. And it just brought up a lot of, I think, unresolved feelings that I've had about movies that I feel like I need to get off my chest, when it comes to black stereotypes and the relationship between black people and white people in film. It's something that's been, it's been talked about by things like The Telegraph, The Guardian, and whatnot, but it's just still something that we haven't exactly moved the pen, we haven't exactly moved the needle yet, so to speak. We're just now getting movies where, you know, black men can kiss white women on film, and you know, there's still like, if you go on the comments section on YouTube, there's still a bunch of outrage about it. But at least we're starting to see something like that happen. Whereas even, you know, 10 years ago, that may not have been the case.
What sort of impact did the movie Get Out have on you?
Well, first off, it really encapsulated like the worst type of fear that I have visiting like the parents of my white romantic partners. You know, like that. Like if we're gonna talk about spectrums, on the opposite, like, negative end of the spectrum, that's where Get Out, the premise of Get Out lies, right? Because you're hoping that you're not coming into a situation where the family of this person, you know, have racist tendencies or have some type of, you know, dark dwellings beneath them. And so with Get Out, I thought was also really interesting because not only did the premise serve, you know, to speak to a lot of the stereotypes between, you know, black men and white women in terms of their relationships, but also how black men are perceived. The black man in the movie, you know, is when he's in that party scene, he's you know, touched and he's looked at and he's kind of coddled as like this piece of meat, you know, and that type of behavior is something that, you know, resonates just much more outside of that film. That speaks to that daily experience that character would have just going about his life, and that's the experience that black men do as well. So there's a lot of like subtle nuances of the film that I feel like speak a lot to the black experience.
How do you feel black men are portrayed in film today, and has it changed? And you haven't been around. Well, let me put it this way: since you started getting into film watching, media watching, has there been any change in the portrayal of black men in film, in your opinion?
Well, now we're starting to see a lot more, I guess, accurate representation, right? So it wasn't the fact necessarily that there was no representation of black people in film, but it was the type of representation that we had. You know, the 5 most common stereotypes of black characters in film are what? Like, there's the magical, you know, Negro stereotype, where it's like the black guy is like this mystic, and he has like, you know, all this access to, or it could also be a woman. They have like this access to this like arcane knowledge that the main character doesn't, you know, necessarily have, so they like help them in that regard. Of the black best friend stereotype, where he's like the cool guy, so the main character always goes to him to, like, you know, see, oh, like what would, you know, work out with this girl? Oh, this pickup line, and then it works, you know. So we see that. Then we also see the stereotype of like the brash black woman who's, you know, like, no, this ain't gonna work tonight, sir. And while those can still be seen in films of today, you know, now we're starting to see really positive representation. Like, let's say, for instance, Black Panther. You know, besides, I want to say, Blade. When was the last time you actually saw a black superhero in film? You know, not that often. I mean, we see Falcon, you know, in like the Marvel movies as of late, but there's no one movie centered around him, right? He's kind of like the black best friend to Captain America. So I'm glad that we're starting to see, you know, especially in the superhero genre, starting to see positive images of black men and black characters in general.
Okay. And you know what? I have to give a shout out here to one of the very good friends of the Dr. Vibe show, Tachi. She actually has, this is right up her alley, so I'm hoping that she provides some commentary, because this is what she teaches: media, communications, etc. And she just said there was also absence. And it just, to add to what you were saying, I don't watch a lot of TV, but one of the few series that caught my eye in the last few years was Luke Cage. You know, and it's interesting how it seems that maybe it's our superheroes getting the just due. Are they leading the way in regards to accurate portrayal, at least of black men, in your opinion?
what's important about superheroes, and the importance of having black people be represented in those films, is that they are easily consumed as cultural capital, right? So superhero movies, Iron Man, Captain America, those movies are seen all across the world, from China to Singapore to Thailand. And because of that, if you don't have contact with that group of people, then that can easily become, perceived ideas about that race. So if you live in a nation where you don't have any connection with black people, but you're always seeing black people in these American movies as portrayed as these certain, stereotypes, then that kind of becomes your knowledge of black people. So when you have, the whole lexicon of American cinema, representing black characters that way, but these superhero films starting to, paint that picture in a different light, then for those, markets, it's nice for that picture that they have, previously to start, being painted in a different way. Especially, you brought up Luke Cage. What I think was really important about Luke Cage is the entirety of the black experience that writers and team wanted to really illustrate. For instance, let's talk about like his hoodie, right? I mean, I don't think it's really a tongue-in-cheek reference, but I mean, we can see how that relates to Trayvon Martin, right? Because he was wearing a hoodie when George Zimmerman stopped him and murdered him. And so, Luke Cage, that was like his Spidey suit, right? In the show, it was this bulletproof, he was bulletproof, but like, the bullets that hit his hoodie kind of like represented, all of this trauma that someone like Trayvon Martin, had to endure. So we were starting to see, how even negative aspects of, real life black experience can be kind of turned around in media. And with that being a really cultural commodity, if that's being accessed in the proper way, then we're able to see how that can positively affect the stereotypes that are tied to black men.
In our conversation tonight also, are you willing to go into the portrayal of blacks in television, or do you just want to speak to film?
No, I mean, they're in today's world where, Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu and all these applications are there, I think it's important to have both of them, because a lot of the times they can like interweave in the type of ideas and the type of stereotypes that they're trying to fight, right? So I think, we can dip both into those realms. Okay,
because I want to go into the spectrum of what we see on primetime television. We want to get even more so what we see of a portrayal of blacks on a network like BET.
Well, BET is a very interesting network because while it does, I'm assuming its purpose is to advance people in the medium of film and television. The way that they can demonstrate that desire is somewhat questionable. So let's say, for instance, if they're just having like a marathon of like Tyler Perry movies. Tyler Perry movies are not an accurate depiction of like black like life, and they have their own problematic elements to them, So like if we're gonna be talking about like BET in terms of what it can do as a black entertainment, television network, then we need to see what we can do to make BET TER. And no, that's not my original thought. That's from Donald Glover, so I can't take credit for that. But it speaks volumes because if this is supposed to be our network, right, where the one slight microcosm that we get in the in the television network space, then we need to make that as representative and as progressive as we can.
Well, it's interesting. A few conversation points there now. I live in Canada, so I don't have access. I have access to, well, I could if I wanted to, more channels. There's stations and networks like TV1 out there. Also, it must be taken into account that both a Netflix and both a BET are not black-owned.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, too, is how if a black entertainment television network is supposed to be pro-black, how is it not black-owned? Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose?
Well, that's a whole other conversation. That's about the ownership, and we'll just talk on the, like, well, you know what, it does come into play, because what you see in film or on TV is definitely decisions are made by those who are not on camera.
Exactly. I mean, if you own a television network, you pretty much get to decide what goes on that network. So, I mean, if you own a black entertainment television network, but, you know, all you're showing is, like, you know, like I said, like Tyler Perry movies, or, you know, like Boys in the Hood, then it's like, what is that actually? I mean, Boys in the Hood is different because it's, you know, cultural classic, but it's not as, you know, as genuine as it would be with someone that's black making decisions, you know, because then it comes from a different, you know, cultural lens.
Well, and Tachi comments here, BET is a waste. It does not elevate like it used to.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
So I'm not the only one.
There you go. Understood. What would, and I don't know if you saw the movie. I'm just pulling it out there. Did you see the movie Fences at all?
I mean, I haven't seen the movie, but I've read the play a billion times, and I've seen the play, so.
What do you feel, and I would encourage you to see the movie if and when you get a chance, what do you feel about the portrayal, if you can imagine the play being brought to screen, you haven't seen it, what do you feel about that portrayal of black Americans, African Americans?
Well, you know, what August Wilson does a really fantastic job of in that, you know, play. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I mean, you know, it's Denzel Washington, so I'd be a fool to bet against my boy. Well, like, it makes you really kind of mad at his character, but also super sympathetic at it at the same time, because here is a man who endured racism at its extreme core just for trying to play a sport, you know, similar to what happened to Jackie Robinson. Now, Jackie Robinson used that racism to take his play to such a high level that, you know, I mean, the Dodgers celebrate him every chance that they could get. But for the dad character, we can see how he internalized that. You know, this hate that he got stopped him from playing a game that he loved, and he kind of saw like a writing on the wall where he was like, okay, like the United States isn't ready for like black men in particular to excel at sports. Like they're just not ready for that. And I know that because I was in the same position. So when he sees the son showing, you know, all this brilliance, it's a really like mortal fear that, you know, he's trying to work through. His son is like an avenue for him to try to get over that. And I mean, I think that that's so brilliantly created because we can see that happen in so many different like black households. Like I've been told by my own father before not to, you know, pursue certain things, or, you know, to tell me that I'm gonna have to work harder at certain things because of, you know, like because of my skin tone. You know, what's the common phrase that you hear? It's like, if you're black, you have to work twice as hard to
only twice
of what they all have.
I got 5 times. I didn't get twice.
Got 5 times what?
I had to work 5 times as hard, not twice as hard.
Damn. Well, you might have had a harder life than I did.
Hard life, baby. Hard life. I'm telling you.
But I mean, it's true, and now obviously, you know, the father character in Fences doesn't, you know, direct his emotions in the most healthy way, you know, and he does deter his son from, you know, kind of emotionally handling what he's like what is being illustrated to him, but at the same time, like it's, you know, it's kind of hard because you often think about what would you do in that, you know, situation. I know we talked about previously about, like, you know, holding back your child from certain things, but you know, it does that's a real life situation that comes into play really often. So
let me just let's do a little pop quiz here. Can you give us some of the, and it can be present or in the past, some good representation of black characters in film or in media that you have seen that say you went, this is thumbs up, this is good characterization, male or female?
Well, let's say, how how about we turn that around? How about we do the worst?
Okay, no, I was gonna get to that also, but if you want to start on that end, some of the worst characterization, we can build up from there. Obviously, you had mentioned like Denzel Washington and offenses. What are some of the downside ones? I would like to put it.
Yeah, I just say that because I feel like when you go from negative to positive, you kind of are able to leave a much more positive, resonance.
No problem.
After the fact.
I'm fine with that.
So let's go bad. Let's talk about. You ever see that movie Gods of Egypt?
No.
It was. Oh yeah, I wonder why. It was a movie set in Egypt. About Egyptian mythology, and yet, as far as I know, there was one black guy. I don't know about you. I've taken a lot of African and American history classes, and just African history classes in general. Egyptians were not even bronze skinned. They were like really dark skinned. Like they were black people. So the fact that they have Gerard Butler, who plays like the main Egyptian god, that's like the most horrendous thing I've seen in a really long time, because it's supposed to be a film about black. Like if Egypt is part of African history and there were black people that lived there, then it's a part of black history. So this is a completely like I don't even want to say money grabbing move. It's just incredibly insensitive for them to just have this cast and to be willing to defend it. Not even to say, all right, well, we can see why people would be upset, but to just be like, well, this is a business. Like, what do you want us to do? It's like, well, why you couldn't have hired 4 other capable black actors? I can name 10 off the top of my head. So that's one. I would say another is. I'm trying to like really go for like the worst ones. Oh, here we go. The one that started it off. The Birth of a Nation. It was the first film to be screened in the White House, and it shows a Ku Klux Klan member saving a white woman from a black guy who's about to rape her, which is really funny because it's a white guy in blackface. So that also has its own issues, and yet the film portrays this Ku Klux Klan member as if he's this really sympathetic character, very heroic, to be doing the things that he does. He saves this white woman from this black monster that was just about to take the most precious thing to her. And to go on about that, it's scary because oftentimes black men in particular in these films, whether they're good or they're bad, they're portrayed as monsters, and that's a representation that I'm really like fearful of how it's going to evolve, given the current political,
Sure.
climate of the United States and what that kind of means as, what people see black men as.
Yeah, good take, strong take there. Just sharing out for the people that are watching this epic conversation live, if you have any examples of good or not good portrayal of blacks in film or TV, please feel free to share with us in the comments. Oh, well, Itachi, there we go. We can't talk about this without mentioning the Cosby Show in a different world.
Oh, that's of course not. Or we can talk about In Living Color. It's a sketch comedy television show by the Wayans brothers. Absolutely fantastic, brilliant. That's where Jim Carrey got his career started off from. I don't know how many people watched it, but I couldn't find a funnier show on that. That
show is legendary. And actually Jim Carrey, his birthplace is the same city that I live in. So Jim Carrey, that's where he got his big take, and that was outstanding, that show. But Tachi brings up a good point. What do you feel? Do you feel that the Cosby Show and A Different World were positive representations of blacks in their time?
Well, if we're talking, let's tackle the Cosby Show. Bill Cosby's character in that show is a doctor, so that's awesome. How he's not, I don't know, a garbage man or a postman. Not that those are terrible professions, because obviously they're needed in society. But that those, or a bus driver, these are common occupations that we see black characters occupy. So the fact that first and foremost he's a family man, that is a doctor, that remind me again, he's private practice as well, right? He doesn't
I believe so. I believe so. I'll be totally transparent here. I didn't watch a lot of the Cosby Show, to be honest with you, so I'm just being totally transparent here. But that was me.
So I mean, if that's the case, I mean, I feel like you have to be a pretty successful doctor to have your own private practice. And the fact that, both parents were together, that they were a nuclear family, there wasn't like a broken home in that situation. I think that in itself is pretty positive, because it just shows, it fights against the stereotypes that all, black kids are like just raised by their mothers, without a father, particularly a strong father figure there to be a role model and to really show them not only how to be decent human beings, but to, provide that paternal role. Now, as far as it's a different world, I mean, I think a lot of the same themes, can come from that in terms of like the positive representation. One of the things that I really want to talk about, though, is the movie Juice, because that is very
interesting. Yeah, you got some props on you there, brother. Go ahead for it. Go ahead.
Well, no, because that really juices a duality between the two things that we're talking about, right? It shows a lot of the negative stereotypes of black men, but it mixes in some anti-hero elements and some realism there. So let's take Tupac Shakur's character Bishop, for instance. Really early on in the film, we're demonstrated the life of all these characters. It's set in a really particular fashion, and with Bishop, we can see how the emotional detachment he has with his father, the lack of support, and really love that's present there, has affected him to his very core. He's internalized all of this to the point where, as these characters go through the escapades in the movie, Bishop's characterization just gets darker and darker, because he kind of falls into even more pitfalls of him internalizing this lack of emotional clarity. And with that, the most famous line I can remember from the movie is he's standing in the locker, by some locker rooms, and he's talking to Omar Epps, and he's saying, like, I know I'm not shit, and you're not shit. So the moment that I decide that you're not shit, like, you're gone. And it's crazy because, like, he's like, Tupac's character is like still such a young man, and yet he's deemed his life as such, like, so worthless that he's now projected that onto like everyone else. And so I think that representation and that his character is is so much more important than people may realize, because he represents a embodiment of a black man who has this thug stereotype around him, and slowly and surely the lack of being able to redirect his emotions from a lack of love from his father and everything has led him to physically become a thug. Like, it's almost like a journey of like devolving almost. And we can see how in the film that has Omar Epps' character is the answer to it. That Bishop, his life is going to end up in death, because that's the trajectory of that stereotype. The thug always dies, not necessarily in a thug mansion as Tupac would want, but like, it's tragic. It's almost like Juice kind of like represents our version, like a Greek myth, and so I think that these types of films that not only portray I guess quote unquote negative characters, but like paint why these characters are negative in the first place, how they become negative, and the actions thereof are really important, because we're able to see characters holistically. We're not just seeing them as one-sided. Okay, this guy's just a killer. He sells dope, blah blah blah. But it's like, okay, why did that killer sell dope? What led him to become that? And that's a really important answer, though. I mean, that's a really important question that we have to answer when we do these types of, television shows and movies, is what are we trying to relate to people, not only in our own community, but to the people at large, about what it means to be black?
Very good. And Tachi is agreeing about your thought process in regards to Juice. And yeah, that's a classic movie, and a lot of dichotomies and a lot of messages there for one to think about for a long time to come. I want to get back and make a comparison to see what you think. You were talking about the Cosby Show. I guess the Cosby Show's equivalent, I guess, and people correct me if I'm wrong here, today is a show called Blackish.
What is that? Oh, is that the show that Anthony Anderson
Yes,
is on?
yes.
Right?
Have you seen?
It's like won a whole bunch of Emmys or something.
Yeah, have you seen the show at all?
I have not.
Okay, I'll stay off it because I maybe Tachi can maybe give some take on it, but I just think that is it correct to say that the 2017 version of the Cosby Show would be Blackish? So Tachi, if you want to give it your always evaluated opinion on that, it'd be much appreciated. So we talked about Juice, and it's interesting. Any other examples? Because you pulled that one nicely out of left field. Any other content examples you want to share about positive representation of black characters in film?
Well, I mean, film. Yeah.
Or television.
I'll surely get to that, but I wanted to go back to a different role because I totally did not give that the airtime that it deserves.
Okay.
I mean, first off, like, what's awesome about it, these characters are all going to college. So, like, you know, that in itself is great because it shows that, you know, there's a higher educational status that, you know, black men and black women can obtain. And what's really interesting about that is now that, you know, if this is a group of students, you know, at a historically black university that are just, you know, trying to make it to college, you know, it hits on so many different things. It can be like a coming of age story. It can be, you know, the classic college story that we kind of see in films like American Pie, right? But, you know, it showcases such a unique experience when we see it through a black lens, because we're seeing, okay, these are how black men and women going through a college, you know, these are the types of experiences that they have, you know. And so we're able to see that how differently those experiences might be, you know, interpreted or, you know, just unfolding because of their race versus, you know, any TV show or film about, you know, a white college student. That's like a movie like Road Trip, you know, it's like the fights that these characters have to go through are much different, and whether or not that's just solely based on their race, you know, is a question, you know, you can ask yourself. But their experiences are vastly different, and that's something that we need to recognize in terms of how, for these characters that are going through college, you know, that can be represented in their, you know, educational and their own personal pursuits. Now, when it goes into film about like positive, you know, films for black people, I mean, one that I do not want to say is freaking Soul Plane. that's like, Soul Plane is universally panned as like terrible because it just shows you what a black guy can do when you give him an airline.